doesn't mind it. He doesn't mind it.
Today I'm in central London, just off the Strand, where you'll find the Adelphi building. This Art Deco beauty was built in the 1930s on part of the site of 24 neoclassical terraced houses, also known as the Adelphi buildings. They were built in the late 18th century by the Adam brothers, John, Robert, James and William. Adelphi is of course the Greek word for brothers. At this time, the Thames was a lot wider, and these luxury homes were right next to the river. If you visit Victoria Embankment Gardens today, you can still see the York Watergate, which would have led down to the Thames. Being so close to the river, the original Adelphi buildings would have been constructed on a slope, but they were designed to be level with the Strand, which meant that instead of sitting directly on the riverbank, they were propped up by arches which led down to wharves. So that carts and carriages could get to the wharves, a series of tunnels were built underneath the Adelphi. And this here is the last one you can see out in the open. The road going through it is Lower Robert Street, because it's just off Robert Street, which is named after Robert Adam, one of the architects of the Adelphi. There's also Adam Street and John Adam Street, so these brothers really wanted to make sure they got credit for what they did. Nowadays, Lower Robert Street begins with the original brick tunnel before opening up into this weird garage-like area, which makes you feel like you shouldn't really be down here. But it's still technically the road, although it's closed between midnight and 7 in the morning, and nobody really uses it except the odd courier or taxi driver, some of whom refer to it as the Bat Cave. The Adam brothers poured massive amounts of money into the Adelphi buildings, but the project was a financial disaster. They ended up raising more money by holding a lottery. But things got worse for the area in the 19th century when part of the Thames was reclaimed to improve London's sewage system. This meant the owners of homes in the Adelphi buildings were deprived of their luxurious riverside location. It also meant that the arches and tunnels underneath them were no longer needed to transport goods to wharves, and so they sank into decline, becoming the site of deprivation and crime. As the author John Timms wrote in 1867, beneath the dry arches the most abandoned characters have often passed the night, nestling upon foul straw, and many a street thief escaped from his pursuers in these dismal haunts. Before the introduction of gaslights and a vigilant police, even now tramps prowl in a ghastly manner down the dim-lit passages. It's also said that Lower Robert Street is haunted by the ghost of one unfortunate soul who passed through these tunnels but never returned to the surface. Poor Jenny, as she's now known, was apparently a prostitute who lived on a pile of rags down here. The story goes that she was throttled by one of her clients. With these things, it's often difficult or impossible to separate fact from fiction, but there are supposed reports of people hearing her screams and gasps for air, as well as the kicking of her feet against the floor as she fights for her life. So, if you ever head down to Lower Robert Street, listen carefully.